In this episode, I'm going to discuss with Christelle Dubois about the impact of AI on legal work. Christelle is an attorney at law. With a strong foundation in business and law, she's very knowledgeable about AI and technology in general. In addition, she's a certified artificial governance professional. And in this episode, we discuss the AI impact on legal work from varied perspectives, from the perspective of lawyers, of clients, and also of criminals. Hi, Crystal. It's a huge pleasure to have you today to discuss this very timely topic about the AI impact on legal work, generally speaking. And as discussed, we wanted to start with this example, this kind of viral tweet that many people have seen, saying the following. I recently hired a lawyer to give me an opinion on a personal corporate structure question. He took 3 weeks, wrote me a convoluted and confusing memo, and insisted on a 1 hour long call. Then he charged me 5,000 US dollars. I asked Claude the same question. Claude gave me a perfect response. It basically said the exact same thing, except instantly and easy to understand. And the conclusion of the tweet was reap most legal work, which many people liked, let's say. What do you think? What's your take on this example?
So first of all, Quentin, thank you very much for having me on your podcast. It's a great honor. So I'm a lawyer, so for me it's a big topic, and I also saw this tweet. What I want to say is, well, first of all, we see many of our clients who use AI now to generate their contracts, and um, and I think it's good that people use AI as a tool really to help them brainstorm about their obligations, their rights, and I think overall it can do a good job. And it's true that the legal profession need to adapt to AI and to these tools, and we really need to get used to the fact that our clients are gonna use these tools and maybe challenge us a bit more about our legal notes that may be too long or that may be too costly as well, and as well that may be not not well detailed or like too detailed in some parts. So overall, I think it's right that the legal profession might be challenged by these AI tools. However, when I read the contracts that my clients have me review and that they generated with AI, we really see that AI is not meant to be a lawyer. So of course it knows a lot about legal text. It's meant really to please the user about what they want, but in the end we really see also the challenges in the clauses or like in or like in the sections that the AI tools produce, because they are not really adapted to a legal system, and because they generate text, they are not meant to be legally right. So when I review the contracts from my clients, sometimes I'm like, okay, there are all the sections that needs to be in
Mhm.
the in a contract, but when you read them, they don't address like for instance the IP rights or like the protection of IP. The way it's written, it's not good enough to protect the interests, and so we often see like challenges because, like, to be totally honest, now even our clients, they don't use us for all the contracts. They draft the contracts, they submit it to their clients, and then when there's an issue, they come to the lawyer and they say, yeah, we have an issue with this contract. And when we see how it's written, then we see, yes, well, that's because it's written this way. So of course there will be challenges. So yeah, to answer your question, I think it's the legal profession is not dead, and it's meant to stay. However, it needs to be aware that that their clients are expecting more like maybe more advisory work and less billable hours. And also for our clients, I think there's a real awareness that needs to be built, that you cannot really rely on the outputs of AI, and that it's not because the contract looks good in its whole and because it has all the sections and that the sentences are written nicely, that it's complete and that it protects their interests. So
Mhm.
yes, that's first point to raise.
Yeah. And so it's very interesting to know this back and forth and how it's evolving, basically people drafting
Hmm.
and then asking maybe for feedback or coming to the lawyers when it didn't work and when you
Yeah.
have an issue. But do you feel that there are gain in efficiencies? It's more productive that the some people will start right, or it creates more problems than more
So
harm
it
than good?
depends. I think it depends on
Mm.
the situation. Um, and it depends on the types of contracts as well. And so if it's like a basic contract or like, you don't really, sometimes you don't really need a lawyer to do it. So it's good that you use and that at least maybe it's easier for clients who don't have a lot of money to spend on a lawyer that they have something in writing instead of just oral agreements. But what I see is that when I review the contracts that are being sent to me that are AI generated, sometimes it's I spend more time reviewing them than actually producing the contract because we have addressed all these questions before. So sometimes when you have the right lawyer and I think as well like the legal profession is moving away or is gonna have to move away from billable hours to more like fixed fees. And so sometimes it's even more efficient to have your lawyer draft you the first template of this type of contract that you can reuse and potentially use AI to review a specific clause or to customize the contract for a specific client. But at least you have a first draft that is complete and you don't work from I mean from information that are not right, and that are not correct and legally sound. So
Mhm.
so um, so yes, I think overall it depends.
Mhm.
I think lawyers are more and more using AI as well. For instance, on in my practice, for contract, when I have a very innovative contract or something, or like a document that addresses new topics that I haven't done, that I don't have a template for. I use AI like to brainstorm because I think it's a good companion for that, and maybe clients should use it for that way too. But in the end, I will always, of course, review the output of the AI, and so from a time efficiency basis, I think you save time by using AI from a client point of view, but you cannot really rely on the AI. And I think that's where lawyers are important. It's also because when lawyers they send you something, it's supposed to be correct, and that's also we put our responsibility on this, and so it means that for clients, they can really trust the work that is produced by their lawyers, even though if they use AI as well. But at least it's like a stamp that it's
Mhm.
correct, as opposed to using just generating uh, your contract by yourself and thinking that it's right. So I think you need to have an advisor that can review and that can also advise you as to what you need to produce. But then, if you want to write a letter to a client, I think you can use AI, and I see many of my clients who do that as well. And in the end, it might be as well quite efficient, like formal notice or this kind of types of letters. It's true that AI, they do a great work, and then you send it to your lawyer to your lawyer that reviews it. It's true that in the process you may save time and some money as well. So
Mhm.
I think it's something that we need to adapt to as lawyer as well.
So back to the example we have seen in the introduction, we have discussed in the introduction, it revealed this very well. It's basically the
Hmm.
person was able to say, Claude gave the perfect answer. But why
Hmm.
he was able to do this? Because he had the lawyer
Exactly.
answer as the
Hmm.
ground truth.
Mhm.
without this reliable answer. And the person actually trusted the lawyers to
Mhm.
assess the quality of Claude. Next time, if you have a contract for your house, for your company, and you don't have this ground truth where you can
Mhm.
trust the person, it will be very hard to say and dangerous to rely on such generative AI. So it's very interesting here and very well highlighted how you
Mhm.
presented this is really it can be used and to basically automate, help to draft, to brainstorm. For
Mhm.
clients, it might be useful where it's not possible for them to get a lawyer. For example,
Mhm.
things of lower importance, but at least you have some level of protection.
Exactly.
And here, but for the rest, it could help in the process. That's really what we see, generally speaking, with GenAI. It helps to augment if you are able to filter out the content, but
Exactly.
not automate and replace.
And also, when you use AI, sometimes it's really able to generate you like very nicely written sentences that you could spend like, like 30 minutes drafting this sentence that you want to like something that be very formal or, affirmative that you want to state. And the AI does it in a few seconds in the end. So I think it's a tool that people should use definitely. But if it's an important matter, you should always check it or have it checked by your lawyer or by someone who is legally sound. So you cannot really rely. And another point I want to say is that, for instance, I use AI to help me generate new text or like for some contracts sometimes. But I always in the prompt I always have like a clause that I use. So I have a template clause that I use. And so the AI really works on this. And then it's more like it's really, you should think of AI as text generation, not as someone who will think of on your behalf. So it helps you redo a section or it helps you go into more details, customize a section for a specific case. But it should just be done, you should just use it for that, not for generating the whole thing on your behalf, basically. And so, yeah, to get back to your example, exactly. I mean, the client was said that Claude issued the same thing, but you never know. Maybe it input, the memo that was done by the lawyer as a template. So, that's maybe it uses the information from the memo. So, you never know how he came to this conclusion. So, yeah.
True.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have a preferred model, or do you try it with different things, different tools?
No, I try with different things. We are a bit restricted in the legal field because of our, professional secrecy. So we cannot share any confidential data from our clients. We cannot share our clients' names, of course, and personal data. All of this is not possible. We are working on having tools inside my law firm so that we can, but you never know really how, if, lawyers are always a bit skeptical about these tools and how you can use them. And for us, it's a big issue. And also, I think for our clients too, they need to be aware that they should not share, all their trade secrets with the LLMs or like with the solutions that they use, because it means that they are, disclosing their trade secrets to the company that is um, providing these AI systems. So they need to be very aware of that. And I think sometimes they are not. So I think this is something but personally, so I use Claude, I use ChatGPT. I also use some models from Mistral. I use Le Chat,
Mhm.
and then I use, yeah, different. I try, and I don't have a preferred system, but I will say that if I compare Claude to ChatGPT, Claude sometimes it gives me like. I will not say better results, but I prefer how it's written.
Hmm.
Like I prefer the way the output. But then I think that ChatGPT can be a bit more innovative, I will say, in the way it produces its content. So sometimes I find it a bit more satisfactory in the sense that think Claude, sometimes the output is too generic, even though I'm trying to customize it. I put, I think, the right prompts, even though, you need to, I'm not, I may not be, I may not have all the correct prompts for all systems, but I try. And I think that when I'm doing something quite innovative, I prefer to use ChatGPT and Claude when it's something a bit more generic. But again, it's more like in the way of how the sentences flow and the ideas that will come out. But of course, I'm a bit limited because for instance, I cannot put all the memos that I produce for my clients. I will never put it on these systems because it's all confidential information. So it's just for me, I use it like for rephrasing but to the extent that no trade secrets and confidential information are shared. So it's a bit limiting, I will
Hmm.
say. Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really like your 2 points. So the fact that you prefer some, because indeed I'm also experimenting with all and
Yeah.
with many, let's
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in first, it's changing all the time. For example, I
Yes.
was a big fan of ChatGPT o1.
Yes.
They stopped. So then I
Yes.
tried with their newer model 4.5 and o3, which I
Yeah.
really don't like.
Yes.
And
I
what
agree.
I like in the way you describe the way they basically talk is
Hmm.
it's really like working with different personalities and people. You know
Hmm.
that some will have this type of tone, even if you adapt with the prompt, right? You
Hmm.
know that some are good at things, they will have this specific tone which is adequate for something. And this leads to basically the second point you 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 mentioned, or at least which sounds clear to me, is that
Hmm.
people have to try.
Hmm.
You have
Exactly.
to try to understand what works, what doesn't in your specific line of work. You have to
Hmm.
understand, okay, here is a good use case, here is a dangerous use case, here is what other might be doing. And
Hmm.
to basically also for young professionals, and actually everyone, I always mention young professionals, but I think anyone to basically get ready for what's coming because it's changing
Yes.
very fast.
It's
And if
changing a lot.
you
Yeah.
completely disconnected and you have reason to want to avoid this that I understand as well, like
Hmm.
environmental impacts,
Yeah.
also the risk of potentially harming our capacity to think or
Exactly. Yeah.
varied things learning. But still, I mean, it sounds risky because these tools are there, people are
Hmm.
using them, and if you're
Hmm.
completely disconnected it might be hard to be competitive on the job market and understand what's coming.
Yeah, and even now for document reviews, or like, for instance, for all these articles that I'm sure you read a lot of articles as well. Now I use, or like even for laws now, I use Notebook
Hmm.
LM or LLM, I forgot
LM, yeah.
LM. And I find it like, for instance, for the EU Act, this regulation is so long and difficult. Sometimes you have websites that help navigate all the provisions of the law. But for instance, I put it in Notebook LM, and then you can really ask questions and it finds you the right provision. So now I try to do this for all like, articles or like laws that are a bit difficult to read. I use Notebook LM, and I know that the tool that we are developing or like that we are implementing inside my law firm, they have this capability as well. So I know that there is a lot of legal tech as well that helps you review the documents that you receive from clients in a more efficient way. Then, of course, you need to trust the output again, but you can always, you can. I mean, it's easier, than just like it's the same for contracts. Sometimes you have contracts that are like 40 pages or more, and it takes a long time to first have the first read through the contract. So all these tools that you can use and that are secured for legal work, well, it saves a lot of time, and also it helps you. I don't know, it gives you a different perspective on the document. You know, you don't fall asleep before the end of the reading the document, basically. So I think people need to really use these tools because we see now in when you are a bit involved in the field, you see how how techies or not only techies but how people who are interesting about this technology, how they are all the panoply of tools that they are using, and sometimes it can feel a bit overwhelming. So but you need to try and test as you say, and and at least try new tools. There'll be every two tools every week, so you really get your mind um, made for to discover these the capabilities of these tools, because otherwise you're a bit, I think you can be a bit stuck as well.
Mhm.
uh, with all the tools that are available, it's a lot to digest, I think. So yeah, it's
True.
yeah,
And Notebook LM is actually indeed a fantastic tool and a great
yeah,
advice. I'm not
yeah.
surprised you're using this. That's one of the tool I'm still using a lot
Mm-hmm.
because I'm cautious these days with potentially the competing between the productivity and long-term effect of my learning, my
Yes.
skills, and things like this. So I try to diminish a bit the use of other standard tools for many tasks, or at least I do
Mm-hmm.
it with really a clear conscious. Like I decide precisely I'm ready to lose a bit on learning on this to gain on
Mm-hmm.
productivity and to focus on that. That's one part. But Notebook LM, I use it extensively because, as you said,
Yeah.
for people who are not aware, Notebook LM will really not be creative and fancy, and it's really just really reliable. So
Mm-hmm.
very low level of hallucination, if any. It's citing your documents or many
Exactly.
documents. It's very precise, and you can always double check with the source easily. So you
Mm-hmm.
provide the documents, and it will focus on this document to answer. And I think, as you said, I mean, I'm reading a lot of scientific research. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's painful, and as
Mm-hmm.
you said, reading a full paper is sometimes painful, and it's a novel way to interact with the content
Exactly. Yeah.
that is
Mm-hmm.
way more dynamic. And also, I mean, often with long reports, for example, not maybe contracts, but with long reports,
Yes.
most of the
Yes.
time you don't want to read the report. You
No.
want an answer to a question.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
And this
I
is so
agree. Yeah.
powerful. You ask the question, you get the reference, and sometimes a control F, like just to find keywords, is not enough. You
No.
control F something and you have either a no match, either 350,
Yeah.
and anyway, it's suboptimal. But here it's really about the meaning. So can you tell me what's about this in this report? And it can find it well and
Exactly.
summarize, and you can read it back.
Yeah. I think it's, as you say, it's a new way of learning and assessing information as well. So yeah, I agree with you. And maybe another tool that I use quite a lot is Perplexity Pro to do the research, to do some research, because when you use this after, it's a bit, even though now Google, they have their own, and I think it's quite good, to be honest, because they are right to put all of, because otherwise before, like having, I mean, with Perplexity, you find the answer quite instantly, and the sources that it produce are very reliable, and it doesn't provide you with, I think, the text that it generates. Sometimes it's a bit out of scope of what you are looking for, but you are able to find sources that are very useful, I think. So this is also another tool that is useful, I find.
Yeah, so
But
also
yeah.
if someone
Hmm.
doesn't know Perplexity, Perplexity.ai is kind of the idea is to disrupt the way we search on the web. Instead of a search engine, it's
Hmm.
an answer engine. And basically, you ask your question, it goes on the web, selects sources, summarize the source while citing the sources. So if you're careful, you can indeed double check with the sources that first these are reliable, or at least you
Hmm.
find that they are reliable. And second, you can double check the actual source also because it might be lost in translation. So for some complex or very specific things, you're able to double check with the source directly, which was not the case with, for example, initial LLMs who
Hmm.
were not made to connect to the web and were not citing their sources.
Exactly. Yeah. Hmm.
I have A question that I had since the beginning. So you work in Switzerland. Do you work mostly with legal work with the Swiss laws? And
So
basically, my question is about if you know if there are differences in qualities between if you use the US, Swiss laws, international laws, or if you know if there are differences. Yeah.
when I use tools, you mean
Yeah,
AI tools? Yeah,
the quality of the answer
yeah,
for from
yeah.
standard LLMs, if they are better or worse, depending on the
Yeah,
jurisdiction you're working.
yeah. So all the, LLMs that are developed by US firms, well, they are mostly based on, I think the data that was used for the training. They are not really familiar with Swiss law, and why would they be? Because, but I know there are some tools. There is like a tool that is meant for Swiss lawyers to research legal, like the Swiss legal system and the case law. And to be honest, previously we already had we already have like a platform which is called Swisslex that uses AI. It's not generative AI, but you can research all the. I mean, I think you may know you can research all the legal scholar works. You can research case law, and it's quite efficient to be honest. But I think now there is a new, there are some companies that are trying to build this for the Swiss
Mm.
legal system, and I know that in France it's the same. So it might be similar for all countries. To respond to your question, sometimes I do ask, what do you think about? I want to draft a clause that is aligned with this article of this law and under the Swiss legal system. And I mean, for instance, Claude or ChatGPT, it will try to create something, but it, it's okay. It's not great, and it's not like of sound quality, like it's not like a lawyer quality type of job. And sometimes it's really, I've seen a lot of hallucinating output from these types of questions because it doesn't know, I think, and it's true that the way that the output are generated are more like in the form of US contract types of contracts is usually very lengthy, so it's not similar than in Swiss law when we try to be more concise, I think, in the contract, even though now contracts are getting longer and longer. So yeah, it's not really adapted, and that's why you really need a lawyer to review the contracts that are generated with these types of tools.
So
Mhm.
one thing that I was thinking also, because what we see today about the impact of AI on work is
Mhm.
usually the junior
Yes,
jobs are a bit at risk because it can help
yes,
them to be more productive, but it can also harm their learning. And
yes.
sometimes senior or you might be willing to replace them
Mhm.
depending on their skills quality. And I was just wondering for jurists, I'm not sure about the words in English, but
Mhm.
basically not lawyers, but
Yeah, legal trainees. Yeah,
okay,
legal
legal
trainees. Yeah,
trainees.
yeah.
Thank you. And
Mhm.
what do you observe? What do you see with respect to them? How do they have to adapt? Is there a risk for them to be partially replaced, or is it rather they are augmented with these tools? What do you think?
I think it depends on how you use. I think it depends on individuals. I think it's true that these junior associates or like trainees. Well, it depends on the type of work. If you do like a lot of litigation, you will need like a junior, associate or like a legal trainee that will help you write the 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 memoir or like the legal action that you will file to the court later. This you cannot use AI to do that because it's based on the facts, etc. So these type of jobs are not replaceable, I will say, with AI. However, if you use junior associates, or if they are meant to do some maybe legal research for you, or if they are meant to write legal memorandum that AI can also help you do and that you can also review, it's true that I find that I think we are really in a, in a situation where law firms are, not yet there. So they are not, I think it depends on the level of law firms. I know in the US they are more advanced, but talking from a Swiss perspective or even French perspective, law firms are implementing legal tech internally so that they can use AI securely. But I think maybe they don't really know how to use it properly. And I think the junior associates that recently joined, well, they are really getting to know the tools as well. So they might not be very efficient with those tools as of now because they're also learning the job. And so how to assess if, the output is right or not. I think think we are not there yet. Maybe the next generation, so like in maybe in 2 years' time, this will have changed and the junior associates they will be very efficient using AI and because all the tools will be available internally, they will know how to use it rightfully, I will mean. But for now, what I've seen is it's okay, I don't think it's a real gain in efficiency for junior associates. If their jobs are at risk, I think potentially, and I think that's a big issue that needs to be addressed as well because we need people to come to come to the profession and to be enthusiastic and to not feel that AI might do their job better than them. But yeah, I think it's really we should we should think maybe a bit more like medium term, and I think in 2 years' time every junior associates that come in will really know how to use the tools and it will be more there will be more evangelization. But from what I've seen now at universities, they are trying to use the tools, but it's sometimes you are not allowed to use as well uh, generative AI to do your research or like to produce some output. So how can you enter the workplace? And even though now it's a bit sometimes like maybe last year it was still a bit how do you say you were not shouting on the roofs that you were using AI in your work and I think still now maybe people there might be policies internally that prevent you to use AI. So yeah, I think what I will say is that everyone should really get on it and spend time to test the tools so that they know how to use it. And internally, we need to have policies in place that enhance this use. And I know that in my law firm, we are getting there. I know that in other maybe larger law firms, they do have tools, but I'm not sure everyone is using them very efficiently. And I think it's really a training and like a AI literacy uh, awareness that needs to be built in or like that needs to be yeah conveyed internally. And so far, yeah, so far less good. So far it's not going extremely well, I will say. Everyone is a bit testing and
Mhm.
or not, and
Mhm.
people are not testing and some people are a bit reluctant as well because of course many people are afraid that it could take their jobs and it might do but I think it's really about when you start using these tools that you realize what is your added value uh, in all professions because it's true that when you start using it, you might feel a bit overwhelmed because you're like, okay, well, wow, it can produce me this document. I will have spent hours producing it. But then when you read through it, you're like, well,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So,
No, I had exactly this image in mind, and that's why you have to try it because I love to see people who starts using these tools because usually you're
yeah,
a bit reluctant, then
yeah,
you're like, well, it's kind of generic answers. You try to push it a bit more, and you're like, wow, that's perfect, fantastic. And as you said,
hmm,
basically, it's kind of the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's not exactly,
exactly.
but at some point, you start, okay, after passing the hype, the fact that it's really impressive and
Hmm,
novel, and the capabilities, you're like, okay, now I can see the limitations, which
exactly.
are very good because you have to
Hmm,
reach this point to know when to use, when not using it, and basically the world is changing fast. These models are
yeah,
just out in the wild, changing every other week, and we
Mm-hmm.
have to teach basically the good
Exactly.
potential. So education, basically. Education
Yeah, and
is.
I think at school and at university it
Mhm,
should be as well. But this is yeah, medium term, and I think we
mhm,
will get there eventually.
mhm,
But for that, we need to have, from the top. It needs to come from the top, basically. That maybe the systems like the learning system needs to be reviewed, and
mhm.
some countries are already doing it, so some others. So it will be yeah. I think in 3 to 5 years, everything will be different from now on. But so far, well, yeah, so far it's okay, I
So,
mean,
based on
yeah.
your expertise, what would be, so you mentioned several, but are there any other use case where you see for legal work where generative AI can be great? So you mentioned
Hmm.
for reading, getting feedback when writing, and exploring laws or these long documents, but do you have any other use
So
case you have in mind?
so it's like the document reviews and like finding information. This is very useful. um, and then having something that helps you rephrase. So it's like, so first is the research part that can be improved. Then it's the content generation part, and the first, of course, the brainstorming strategic point of view that can be. But yeah, these are the three lines of or three use cases that I see, and for small tasks as well. Like I know that some lawyers, I'm also using sometimes AI, like when you always have the same times that are recurring, like to onboard clients, or even like like administrative tasks. These should be automated, but we are not there yet. I mean, we don't have an AI agent internally that does all the work, but for sure, this will come, I think. And then, in law firms and in the legal profession in general, you have quite a lot of administrative staff, and maybe they are very busy actually, like issuing the invoices and like doing very like admin heavy work. So their time could be put to better use. Like we are now like in a content, everyone is producing more and more content. We want to have a voice. This type of staff, they can also help with that, and be marketing managers as well. So I think the jobs might evolve in this way, and I think it's quite good as well for all levels of expertise in the end. So
Mhm.
mhm,
And for admin tasks that are a bit
mhm,
repetitive, well, basically the issue is that we have limited amount of time, and
mhm,
usually, indeed, these tools, are, as you are highlighting, allows you to automate things that are
mhm,
not where you don't really need to exploit your time or
mhm,
take you too much time, and you
mhm.
can focus where your expertise is much needed. So
Exactly,
for several repetitive emails, you have
exactly.
the tool is really patient, will write it perfectly, instead of
Mhm.
someone who is very busy and just say an email that might sound a bit rushed or
Exactly,
harsh. I think in
exactly.
this case, it's really beneficial. But you always have the two sides. So for these tasks, automation is or quasi automation is great. But for
Mhm,
example, for transcripts,
mhm,
I had several times this discussion with different line of work. But
mhm,
when you do the transcript, it might sound boring for the person taking notes and so on and so
mhm,
forth.
mhm.
But at the same time, there are many things that are happening at this while you take the notes.
Yes.
You filter, you put your own expertise to
Mhm,
sometimes maybe adapt. And it's not just recording and writing. Now you can just basically give it to an AI to listen, to do the next to do, the summary and
mhm,
everything, which might be good because you can also argue that during the meeting you can be fully focused. Everybody who is there can be fully focused on the discussion without being distracted and losing time taking notes.
mhm.
But you have pros and cons in most of the cases. And I think it's
Yes,
always doing with really awareness of what we might be losing and
exactly. No, it's
what
true.
we
It's
gain.
true. Yeah, I agree.
So now that we discussed the use case, Basically, and you already mentioned this, but what are, in your opinion, the good practice with respect to privacy and
Mm.
hallucination in legal work?
Yeah, well, it's a big topic, and so for hallucination, if I start with this part, so well, as previously mentioned, you should not trust the output of generative AI, and this has been for the legal profession. This has also been highlighted in the US now. There are some legal cases where lawyers used maybe their internal AI tool to do some research for them, and maybe and then it came out that the AI system hallucinated on the output. So in the legal briefs, or like in the that were sent to the court, there were like wrong authorities that were named. So like like authorities that do not exist, or like legal cases that do not exist. And you really need to check the output of generative AI, and do not, even though it's based on your data, even though you might have developed like your own fine-tune your own model based on your data, or based on, it should always be checked, because you never know. You cannot trust basically the output. Now, if we talk about confidentiality and personal data, well, it depends on how you use these Gen AI systems. If you use them with a free, or like a freemium, or like a pro account, well, you should not share you should not share any personal data. So, and even more importantly, so it's not only about personal data, but trade secrets should not be shared openly to, because it means you are losing your trade secrets. It doesn't mean that they will, review, and when you can ask a question, and then it will come out. But when you read the terms of uses of these Gen AI systems, sometimes it says, well, the data that you are yourself inputting into the systems are used to train again the model. Sometimes it they say that no, all the data that you input is not used for training. But it's not, in the end, it's not very clear, and this changes for every types of systems. So the recommendation will be, do not share any confidential information and trade secrets. If you have your if you have implemented these AI systems like in-house, that it's hosted on your own premises, and that you have your IT teams and security team like really check that the data that you are providing to the systems are really siloed, and that it's not shared to the provider of the systems, then maybe you can use it more freely. So this is the case, like for instance, for us, the AI tools that we are implementing now. But you should really be cautious about how these are used. When you look a bit further, so it also means when you share your confidential data and trade secrets that, for instance, you are in Switzerland or in Europe, the data goes to the US. So this is something to think about. And, the US government, if it's a US company, they can access the data by requesting it. Well, there is a process, but in the end, there is some data that can be accessible. So yeah, I think it's really like something you need to have policies in place for employees as well, that they need to be aware about the risks of those generative AI systems, and the risk as well of security breaches that they may provide for your company. And this is really something that you need to be very cautious about. Then, when we think about the AI models in general, what the EU AI Act is bringing on the table, and there are also other international regulations that are coming. So it's not only the EU AI Act, but these models, general purpose AI, general purpose AI models, they will need to be more transparent about the type of data that was used to train their models. And so they will they will need to publish like a transparency policy about the data that was used. So they will need to cite the sources. If you are like a content producer or like, if you have a website or like if you publish content that you don't want your data and you don't want your data to be trained, to be used for training for these models, there are some opt-out mechanisms that are available. However, it's not 100% sure that they are respected, and that's why we have all these litigations occurring, so in the US, in Europe, around the world, basically. But as a way to protect your information, you can use these opt-out mechanisms that are available, not very well known, but it will become, I think, more and more well known in the space. So at least this is something people should know, that there are
Mhm.
some mechanisms in place to protect your content. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, you have different indeed tools.
yeah,
So you can have your own tools with very high level of security, where basically
yeah.
you have your dedicated server.
Mm-hmm.
This exists as well, but indeed, if you're going even through the API or through a server or
Yes,
just through basic models, I mean, tech companies in the US are not really well known for respecting privacy.
no.
So, despite there are sometimes the information we have about the usage of our data, I will
Mm-hmm.
be cautious for sure, in particular in the sensitive industry like the legal work. And also, there is this whole topic of machine unlearning. The thing is, basically, once the
Yes,
machine learns something, it's very hard to make it forget.
yes.
So because ChatGPT for open, basically it's maybe more than a trillion parameters. So it's very
Mm-hmm.
hard to understand where this information is included and how to make the machine forget basically. So that's a huge problem. Once it's learned, we don't really know how to take it out. And indeed, as you
Exactly.
said, I mean, uh, they are really reluctant. There was this interview with the former CTO Mihamurati of OpenAI
Mm-hmm.
early,
Yeah, she didn't know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
or
yeah.
didn't want to
Uh-huh.
answer. I'm not sure.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm not sure, indeed.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, but but uh, but basically, you know that they have the data set somewhere. They
Mm-hmm.
just don't want to share because there are probably many copyright violations, and that's basically probably what we have seen also with all the Ghibli image generations.
Exactly.
So you
Mm-hmm.
can say, well, it was trained on copies of this, and you have a lot of copies of this, and these were not under copyright. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure what's the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, it's indeed it might create a lot of questions, in particular with not in particular, but a lot with image generation. So also
Yes.
you can now with the new tools, you go to some image banks and you
Mm-hmm.
have this basically text on it, so you have to pay. Now it's very easy to give these images to these tools and say get rid of the text or
Yes.
generate a very similar image. And
Yes.
then basically it's yours. It has been made with your generative AI image generation system, but it's really clearly stealing
For
in the.
sure, for sure. And I think there are two things to say here. The
Mhm.
the first one is so when the web is scrapped, like for all the data that you input, so of course there are some copyright issues there. But the providers of those models are often saying that, well, when they use this data for training, it's not really a reproduction of the work. Why? Because it's divided into multiple tokens. You cannot really, it cannot be considered as a reproduction of the work from a copyright point of view. So there's no infringement of copyright in this sense. And when they admit that potentially there is a reproduction, they say that, well, because it's so it's already available on the web, and it's also because of legitimate interest for training, such very for training, it's so legitimate interest, fair use in the US. They also this is the exception that is used, and in Europe it's the text and the data mining exception as well, that you can use copyrighted work for research purposes. And so that's why sometimes, so that these are like the main arguments that are put forward by these providers in the litigation cases. So it's first from the training point of view, and then the second thing I wanted to say as well is that, from a transparency point of view, so when you use AI to generate like an image that looks very similar to another image from the output, so um, are the person who prompted and provided the image to the system? Are you yourself infringing the copyright of the original owner
Mhm.
of the work? Well, in my perspective, yes, you are, but how to prove this? It will be complicated. But moving on to the transparency point of view, what I think is quite good in the EU IA Act is that there is a transparency provision that will make providers of those AI systems, they will need to implement standards or like watermarks on their content that is used, that is generated, that is generated by AI. They will need to have a machine readable watermark that will state that this content was made or was generated by AI. And I think that's quite good in the end, because that ultimately for copyright owners of the content, they will be able to also trace, and because now it's a bit difficult for copyright owners to even know if their, work is being used for training, and or if it's being used for generating AI. And this could be like the output could be used to, really prove the copyright infringement potentially. Then how this will be solved, we don't know exactly, and I think this is to be seen. And maybe the legal systems with regards to copyrights need to be adapted to these cases, because otherwise copyright owners, they will find it very difficult to be I mean to have their damage to recover their damage, because who will they address, the provider, the user of the AI system. And I think in the end it's too complicated for copyright owners to address. It's an issue that is very difficult, and that's why they are all going there are there are class actions in the US against Anthropic. So they are coming together as organizations, but on an individual level, it's quite difficult to
Mhm.
fight.
Mhm.
So yes, and the transparency as well. Something I wanted to add on is under this transparency provision of the EU IA Act, there is also all the questions about deep fakes.
Mhm.
Like when you produce a deep fake content, uh, like you want to imitate. We have seen we seen it, every, we see it all the times basically. So we see it recently with Macron in the train, who was accused of sniffing coke, or I don't know, something. And it's just like, well, this was obviously AI generated, and so, or like this was a deep fake that should have been, brought to knowledge that this was not a real news, and that was it was not really, it was a bit manipulated. So this kind of content, if they use AI to really create this, they will need the deployer, so the users, so the ones who are prompting, they will be required by law to state that the content is AI generated. So I
Mhm.
think this is quite good in the end for to protect society as a whole from all these manipulation.
Mhm. So that's the perfect transition for one of
Mhm,
the last main topic I wanted to address. There are many, but this one I
mhm,
really wanted to discuss is indeed AI for crime and how it affects legal work. And
mhm,
so here, sure, you can have these watermark that are
mhm,
to detect, but if you're a criminal, you also know that you have like specific tools that you can use that won't create this watermark, that have no limits with the capacity to create things that are inadequate and
mhm,
violating many copyrights or just
mhm,
personal laws.
mhm,
Um, and so deepfake is a very important one. That was this case in the US where basically someone in a financial company firm, I think, was on Zoom with seven, or at least I'm not sure about exactly the case, but basically someone was on Zoom with several people from the company,
Mm-hmm.
uh, including the CFO. And during the meeting, at some point, they suggest to make a transaction of a few millions in an account, and the
Mm-hmm.
person is discussing with his colleagues during the meeting. Then he make this transaction, and
Mm-hmm.
actually, all of the person in the meeting were deepfakes. And
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was a fraud case where basically it was the money
yeah.
moved to an external account. So it creates a lot of challenges for legal work. I've
Mm-hmm.
mentioned this that I've seen also on LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
people generating fake accident image like
Mm-hmm.
bruises on their face after an accident
Mm-hmm.
to ask for reparation, or with their own car they can fake the images that they are
Mm-hmm.
there was an
I
accident,
know, yeah,
and
yeah,
it creates a lot of challenges, I think, for legal work. So I don't know if
yeah.
you're already aware or have seen these cases.
Well, I saw the news. Then how to address them? I think it's a big question because now even with like for fraud, I mean, there was a report that was published this week, I think, in Switzerland as well, that the level of I mean, companies are being more and more like targeted and subject and, falling into the trap of frauds. So now with all these AI generated images, um, except from this transparency thing, or like the transparency standards that will need to come from an international level. So I know that, for instance, ITU, they are working on developing such standards. And from a technical point of view, I don't know how you can make watermarks or these kind of standards not erasable, and that I'm not too sure how it could work, but this should really be addressed. And potentially there could be a way to develop watermarks that are not like very high level, or like no very very uh, watermarks that you cannot manipulate. So this will be like from the technical point of view, and this then for insurance companies that are receiving claims, that should also have an IT systems that can analyze the images produced, and maybe there may be some patterns that could be found in the the generative image field. I'm not an expert in this, but I'm sure that there are some things that you can know that it's AI generated or not. And I
Mhm.
think that the person or like the company that develops this kind of analysis tool that insurance companies or like any types of companies can use to know whether the content is true or is right, like is true or not. Well, this is, I think it needs to be addressed from a technical point of view. From a legal perspective, it is being addressed by the EUA Act and by other regulations with the transparency requirement. But then, of course, you can always you know, uh, not follow the law. So it needs to be from a technical point of view. Now, if we talk about these legal cases, I think that there is a big market for insurance companies there, because, and I think the insurance behind, so now companies have an insurance for cyber security, but they will need to have a new coverage for AI and AI risks, I think, both from when you implement AI internally, but also from what you receive, the content you
Mhm.
receive, from all the transparency point of view. From my knowledge, I've read, I think this weekend in the Financial Times, there was an article on insurance companies or like new that are going into this field of AI risk protections, but uh, so far, I think we are not there yet. But we will see in the future. But
Mhm.
it's definitely a big issue, and for courts and like for so I talked about it earlier, but they are facing like these fake generated briefs or like documents that are being produced by the by AI and that are so and they are being I read yesterday a court order, and the judge said that it was extremely dangerous for lawyers like who were using these AI tools not to verify the information, but even though in like even more in the future, like imagine like how what you can do. You can fabricate
Mhm.
your own documents. So from a criminal point of view, of course, this is uh, this is an offense, and this is something that is criminally prosecuted
Mhm.
later. But you may not do it. You should not do it, and this is already addressed actually. But I mean, how to prove it?
Yeah.
Uh, this goes down to the technical,
Mhm.
uh, yeah, aspect of the thing.
And maybe one last question that I really like to ask at the end of this podcast is, are you more hopeful or fearful about the future, in particular with respect to the impact of AI on legal work?
So I'm good question, because this is something I'm asking myself a lot lately. So I think I'm hopeful. But I'm a bit fearful too, because it means that the I'm seeing, because I'm a bit stressed, I would say potentially, because I'm seeing all the evolution in the field, and for me, the knowledge part of this evolution is really interesting. How I get to really, learn more things and produce work more efficiently. So I think from this perspective, it's very interesting. Then from the need to have a lawyer and how the perception of clients about why you will need a lawyer if you have AI that can do this work. I think some clients really have it, but for maybe some might lose this connection to the lawyer and to really feel the use about the having a lawyer and having fees for legal work. And this is, I think, this transition phase is a bit fearful, but at the same time, I think, down the road, it's, as we mentioned during the conversation, is about experimenting, and then, also seeing the limits of the work, the limits of the tools, and then why you need human connection in the end, and also human expertise that are not brought by machines. Now, if we talk about, artificial general intelligence, well, this I'm a bit fearful, to be honest, because I don't want the society to be governed by machines, or I don't want. I like. I don't want people to stop thinking, and I don't think this AGI will lead to this. But you don't know, and also I feel like it's all the redefinition of your part in society and what you bring and what you do. All of this, I think there are a lot of changes that are happening, and maybe we are seeing it because we are really involved in the field, and because we are noticing it. I have other people around me who are seeing it less. And sometimes this is a bit maybe not frustrating, but a bit something that is bringing me a bit more fear, because how will those people adapt? Will they adapt, or how will the economy as a whole as well adapt to this? But we are not there yet. I think it will be. It's not now. So yeah, to answer, I'm hopeful, and but with some limitations, I would say, on a few topics.